You are listening to a Fonz Media Network production.
Welcome to episode 40 of World Ablaze with George Fonz. On today's show, I have Kevin Dalton. Kevin Dalton has a large social media presence, especially his account on X. Kevin offers news and opinions based on politics and is especially critical of California and Governor Gavin Newsom. Kevin previously ran for mayor of Los Angeles as well as County Board of Supervisors. Kevin and I had a great conversation about California, Gavin Newsom, gun control, and the presidential election. I think you'll enjoy this insightful conversation filled with both facts and opinions. Okay, World Ablaze listeners, welcome. And today I have with me Kevin Dalton, and came across Kevin Dalton off of X. Saw his posts, and I saw how he was super critical of California and Gavin Newsom. And I did a little more of a deep dive and found out you have actual experience with both of those issues or both of those topics in general. So I gave you a follow. And at some point I started realizing, hey, I would like to talk to you. So I reached out and asked if you're available, and you were. We went back and forth a bit, but we finally made this happen, which is great. And I'm glad you're here. Now, I do want to go over a few things just to get started, because obviously my listeners may not be aware of you, and I have a lot to learn as well. But I do know that you live in California for, I think, over 40 years. Is that correct?
Yeah. Right about, let's just say 45 years. It's funny, I'm on X and critical of California quite a bit, and my location says Eagle, Idaho. So everyone is instantly like, all right, Mr. Potato, what do you have to talk about? What do you know about California? I was there for quite a bit of time, and I have almost 50 years of friends, family, and community still there that I care very much about. So I still have a lot to say about the place.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure you're concerned for your friends and family who are here dealing with, the shenanigans that is California. I wanted to ask you, though, you ran for LA County Board of Supervisors, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. With that, how did that come to be?
Well, it was not a plan. I was sitting at home like most everyone when COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, these pretty crazy rules were being handed down by this group of people I had never heard of before. This board of supervisors in Los Angeles County were closing down beaches, and we're shutting down businesses, and we're just across the board one night said what was the word that they used? Essential. Oh man.
Right.
Yes, your job is essential. Yours is. Your livelihood is not essential. You'll sit at home. And this were the board of supervisors. This was my first experience with them, and then all of a sudden realizing that, yeah, mayor is important, governor is important, but these five people have all the say over 10 million people in Los Angeles County, and they're out of their mind. And you could go back and start looking at decisions they've made, and not only through COVID, but before COVID, after COVID, the power that they wield was scary, and the decisions they were making were even scarier. So I had been making, some noise online, always, bitching about Eric Garcetti and everything that he was doing in Los Angeles. I'd even started on Twitter at the time, a handle Next LA Mayor. And I was going to run for mayor, and that was going to be my thing. But with COVID, ended up moving out of the city of Los Angeles, so that kind of fell apart. So I'm sitting at home, back to that when COVID hit. Then all of a sudden, I get a call from someone who says, hey, we need someone to run for District 1 for Board of Supervisor. And I'm like, I know who these people are now, and yes, something needs to be done about that. So, I threw my hat into the ring against Hilda Solis, who was the incumbent. She's been there for a while. She was also a cabinet member on the Obama administration, so she's a heavy hitter. But she's one of the four absolutely bat-ass crazy women who are on the board of supervisors. There's one uh, competent quasi common sense member, but she just gets outvoted every single time. It doesn't matter what the issue is. So I went up against Hilda Solis with zero experience at all. And man, that was a crazy learning experience in itself, even just going down to file. So to go down and file, I needed to give them $2,500 just to get a gigantic packet of paper to go fill out and then go out and get a bunch of signatures. And if all of that wasn't filled out perfect, my $2,500 just disappeared and went away. So I
So no,
started
no guarantees. No guarantees we'd even be able to run.
None whatsoever. I could give them the money. I could go out and for whatever reason, I can't remember. I needed 50 signatures or whatever it was, and I ended up getting, it. Did I get? Anyway, I got way more than that because they can be disqualified, and that's what happens quite a bit. That people will fill out all the paperwork and they're like, sorry, you got 48 out of 50, and have a nice day.
Wow.
So fortunately, I was able to fundraise the money to do this, and got my packet, got all my signatures, got it filled out, and got it turned in and qualified. So I went out and started campaigning and beating feet and going door to door and just trying to talk to people. And the thing that I found out, especially for those who don't know, Los Angeles County is gigantic, 10 million people. District 1 is essentially everything down the 10 freeway. So you start at Pomona and you go west down the 10 freeway till you hit downtown. That's what District 1 is.
That's a big district.
Now, it's big, but what's also crazy is the wild diversity of the district. Because you go down the 10 freeway and you've got every walk of life you can imagine going down the freeway. If you're going down to Covina and then Monterey Park and then Puente Hills and then to downtown, the diversity is wild. But what I found out with talking to everyone is they all wanted the same thing. They wanted to be able to afford a house. They wanted to be able to send their kids to a good school. They wanted to not get stabbed by a homeless guy when they walked with their kids down the sidewalk. It didn't matter what language you came from or what language you spoke or where you came from. If you were born here or you were a Laotian and you've immigrated here, you want to buy a house. You want your kids to be safe. You want them to get a good education. And that's what I ran on. I ended up raising $5,000 altogether. 2,500 of that, of course, went right to the filing fee, and I did not win. Hilda Solis raised just over $900,000. And I don't think she spent any of it. She doesn't need to. She had the whole entire machine behind her. She ended up, I think, 75% of the vote. It's tough, especially when, you go out to events, and it's kind of crazy because she's out, she's not campaigning, but she is also hitting all the community centers with a big giant check with her name on it. And she's like, here, I'm giving the rec center $50,000 under an easy up with her name on it. And I'm like, I know she's not campaigning at these events, but man, she's literally handing out cash to people right now with her name on it.
You can't compete with that.
No, it's tough to compete. But I learned so much along the way, stuff that I would do different. And I may try it again as soon as I get more of the California stink off of me in Idaho.
Oh
Maybe
yeah, I was actually
I'll,
going to ask you if you were going to try that, try for position again in politics.
maybe I'll start smaller with the PTO in my son's school, but I have an opinion on almost anything. But I just for the most part I just want stuff to work better. I'm kind of like an efficiency freak. I walk into a situation and I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing, but we can make this work just a little bit better. Everyone will work a little, it'll be a little easier. But that's what I do when I kind of walk into any situation, whether it's a simple process or it's homelessness or it's traffic. There is a more efficient way to pull this off, and we can do it on a small scale or we can do it on a scale of 10 million people. But why are we doing the same exact bureaucratic nonsense, when we don't have to be tied to that anymore? We've got this amazing power of communication and being able to be, communicating to so many people on X and Instagram and Facebook and everything that's out there. I thought it would level the playing field faster, but I think it's getting there. I really think it's getting to a point where, like I said, these things that I learned, I would leverage. Not that I didn't leverage it before, but I would certainly try to leverage it a little smarter than I did. Stuff that I learned along the way. And I think whether you raise $900,000 or you raise $5,000, if you can talk to the people and you can connect with them and actually get that message to them, I think that's a much more doable thing now, and it's going to be a bigger wrench in this system. These big giant machines that have been politically built over the decades, the centuries.
Right. I would I agree, and I would hope that you're right. With the tools we have now to reach an audience, I would hope that it wouldn't come down just to how much money you have. It shouldn't be about how much money you could spend to reach, people or get their ear to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope that just based on your policies and whatever it is that you believe in, is enough for people to decide that you're the right person for the job, which is what it should be. So I totally agree with that. And I was gonna ask you about something though, because I saw on your X post you got kind of like a motto or slogan there where it says you tried fixing the system by working with the system, and now you're doing it your way. So I was going to ask you, what do you mean by that? What is doing it your way these days, and what does that involve?
Well, that's a lot of this.
Got it.
So, trying to work within the system was running for, board of supervisors and jumping through all the hoops and doing all the stuff that they asked. And it didn't end up exactly where I would have liked and where I think would have been a bigger benefit to everyone. So now I'm doing it my way, which is making sure that everyone sees the repercussions of these policies. You can listen to Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass or anyone on the board of supervisors, and they can tell you that crime is down, and I'm going to show you another side of that. Call me a propagandist, say I'm cherry picking. Well, I may be cherry picking, but these videos seem to land in my lap not on a weekly basis, but on a daily basis. So, if these street takeovers are happening all over the place, JJ Smith up in San Francisco, man, he is one of the scariest and best follows you can have on X. If you want to know what's really happening on the streets of San Francisco, this guy walks down the streets and literally just saves people's lives on a daily basis. I'm not using hyperbole. I'm not saying this guy's a hero. No, this guy is a hero. He sees people ODing. He's reviving them, bringing them back to life as the harm reduction specialist stands over them. He's like, oh, when you bring them back, here's a bag full of crack pipes so he can overdose again. This stuff is what's really happening out there. If it's not reported, it's not a crime. It's not an overdose, but there is scary stuff happening out there. And I don't want it to go any further. Gavin Newsom, I want him in 2026 when he's done, he goes back to Plump Jack Winery and he can't get a job in politics again.
Agreed.
If he wants to go on a speaking tour, that's great, but you don't go any further, man. You don't get to bring everything that you've done here to Washington. You don't get to be a senator. You don't get to be you don't get to go anywhere, because anywhere you go, it's going to follow with the stink of me showing everyone what you've done for 20 years. So that's doing it my way. Am I going to be able to be governor and go and fight Gavin Newsom head to head? No. But can I be a gigantic thorn in his side and make stupid videos and that people share and spread all around, so when he wants to try to come back in 2028, I got a treasure trove of stuff that's going to make sure your ass is sitting in Plump Jack and there's nothing you can do about it. That's doing it my way.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with holding our elected officials accountable. I mean, especially Gavin Newsom. I mean, I'm with you. I think more people should be critical of him, and I'd hate to see him as a presidential candidate, to be quite honest. I mean, living in California, we don't need that across the country. We really don't. And I was going to ask you about the Gavin Newsom thing here, because I know you're critical of him. I was just wondering, is any of that based on any firsthand, interactions with him that you had, or is it just through your experiences? You could just see all the bullshit basically, and you know exactly where it's coming from.
Yeah, it's a common denominator situation. I've never had any firsthand experience with him, though ironically enough, I think I don't know, fourth or fifth month we were here in Idaho, I was with my son on a preschool field trip to the Capitol, where we met the governor. I shook his hand. My son shook his hand. Nice, really guy, personable, literally out meeting with the people and meeting with the kids. So maybe I'm a bit biased, but no firsthand interactions with the governor. When I was really starting to be critical of Eric Garcetti, I started kind of following up the ladder.
Gotcha.
And Garcetti led to from the city level to the county level to the state level, and then you see what Newsom is doing now, but then you start following back where he's been, and a lot of people say, why you blame Newsom so much? He's only been doing this for 6 years. No, Newsom's been doing this for a very, very long time, going all the way back to before he was mayor of San Francisco. And the guy has just left a wake of homelessness and terrible policies behind him wherever he's gone. The crazier thing is, speaking of Board of Supervisors, one of his original gigs in San Francisco was not elected. He was nominated to the position, and there's a few other positions where he was never even elected to. He was handed this. So, he has been groomed from the beginning to take the White House at some point. I would have sworn up and down that it was going to be this year.
I did too.
I did
too.
Still not 100% sure they're not going to try to slide him in at the end.
Yeah, the way it's been going, I can see that happening. I would hope not, but
I do not know what's going to happen after the debate. Maybe Harris is fine, but I can really imagine it just not going well, and we're going to do an exact repeat of the Biden situation, where going into the first debate, everyone was like, Biden is sharp as a tack. He is going to mop the floor with Trump. Trump is going to cry like a little bitch, and there's going to be a gigantic blue wave in November. And then the debate came around. Biden crapped the bed in ways that no one could possibly imagine. Then they were scrambling to fix it. They brought Kamala in. They are prepping her like crazy, just like they did with Joe. She is going to mop the floor with Trump. And I can absolutely see her just completely falling apart when she has to not have a pre-recorded 2-on-1 interview with CNN. No, this is going to be a debate with Trump, who's going to be coming at you. And I know all her debate work is all zingers and, gotcha moments, but those are going to run out. And as soon as she does, she's going to dip back into one of her unburdening of what shouldn't be burdened or whatever she says. And I don't know what's going to happen past Tuesday. So who knows anymore? It's been a crazy 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, and again, here's a classic example: someone who's nominated into being a presidential nominee, right? Like Gavin
Yeah.
Newsom has been nominated into certain positions. Seems to be kind of a theme on that side of the on that side of the political aisle here. Uh,
Yeah.
but as far as Newsom goes, go back. I do want to get back to Kamala and Trump though. But
Sure.
as far as Newsom goes, I mean, I think what you're doing is great because a lot of people, they just think surfing, sunshine, everything. But because of social media, all of the bad policies, as you said, and everything that people are going through is starting to get out. And I know Newsom's feeling the heat about it. Probably why he just vetoed that $150,000, loan towards a home.
For illegal immigrants to buy a first-time
that,
home.
that could
Yeah.
be why. The other reason I'm sure is because hey, we went from $100 billion surplus to a $70 billion deficit, and then the never-ending high-speed rail. Who knows where all the money on that went with all the freaking revisions? And I know somebody who's high up, so I do get some info on that. I'm not gonna say who he is, but I'll just say, how many more consultants do you need to hire?
Well, that's everyone's getting rich. They've built one bridge and they were patting themselves on the back, and it was just adjacent to another bridge where the line already is. This whole entire thing, at some point, and someone should just say stop, we're pulling the plug on this, and that's part of the problem with government is there's no admission of mistake. It's just, well, we just have to keep plugging down this road, and hopefully by the time it completely falls apart, I've been elected to some other office and it's someone else's problem.
Yeah,
And they'll
pretty
kick
much.
it down the road to the next person.
Yeah, just kick the can down the road. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the idea. Just get elected,
agreed.
and
And in the case of Newsom, I mean, the biggest red flag is him blocking the audits. Like you can't even audit where the money's
Sure.
coming or going. So
yeah.
anyway, I know we both where we stand with Newsom, but I did want to get your thoughts on that. I do want to ask you. I'm just going to go down the line here based
Yeah.
on some of the stuff I sent you earlier, just so that kind of stay on task here, and it's related to the election. So there's a little method to the questioning here. And the question I had, because it's recent, I just actually did another episode on it, was the Aurora, Colorado situation.
Mhm.
I wanted to know what you thought about that with the Venezuelan gangs taking over the apartment complexes and whatnot. And to me, it's really a classic example of government officials not being responsible, not being accountable for their actions at all. And all they're doing is just pointing fingers at everyone else for the situation. They're even pointing fingers at the the complex owners, like it's their fault that this happened.
Yeah.
They're pointing fingers at Trump supporters and right-wing media for making it a bigger thing than it is. But then in all of their reports and even their own police don't deny it's happening. But at the same time, they're coming up with task force to go in and take care of the situation that supposedly doesn't exist according to them. So I just wonder what you kind of thought about that whole thing.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head where it's it supposedly exists, supposedly doesn't exist. And that's why you don't get the National Guard sent in when they logically should have been, because the National Guard isn't just the National Guard, it's the National Guard and an admission of guilt.
True.
That there is a problem here, that it's gotten so bad that we need the National Guard, and I don't think that would fly under the radar. Somebody would be out there going, "Why is the National Guard here?" So, I think that's why it wasn't done. And I mean, who knows? I can put on my conspiracy corner tinfoil hat, and maybe the governor of Colorado did make some phone calls, and someone was like, "Stop,
Yeah.
put a lid on it. This will go away." As far as is it being overblown? Because that was one of the things I had put out a video from TMZ, and it was one of the city council women who had initially put out the first video that had the gunman walking around. And they're saying that she doesn't know what she's talking about. This was a dispute between one apartment, and now you're exploiting it. And I'm it's so convoluted now because there's so much opportunity for misinformation. So I'm like, well, let me double check on my end. And then the mayor comes out and he's like, yeah, this is kind of a thing that's happening. So, it gets more and more corroborated, by these officials within the city. But then you get protesters down there who are, literally just there to protest the idea that these Venezuelan gangs are taking over this
Yeah.
place. It's not even it's the weirdest it's the weirdest hill to die on, that no one saw this coming. I'm like,
Right.
where are you going to protest today? Greenpeace, you saving the whales? They doing the straw in the turtle's nose again? You're like, nope, going to protest to make sure that people don't know Venezuelan gangs didn't take over an apartment building in Aurora. I'm like, wait, what? That's going to be a tough chant. So there's so much effort from both sides. It's tough to, it's tough to fully grasp what the truth is. That being said, there are armed men from Venezuela that I have seen on video.
Absolutely.
So even if it's not 1000% that these guys, that they've taken over all of these apartments, maybe it's 99.9% of the truth of that. There's a lot of it that's truth, and they are heavily armed, and they're in our country. And Bill Majulian basically came out when they arrested four of them. And this came out yesterday, and they're like, oh yeah, these guys were picked up at the border in 2022. This guy's a major shot caller in the gang, and they just let them go, and they went right to Aurora and ended up there 2 years later. So they've arrested these guys. They know when they came in the country. They know that they are bad hombres. So there's stuff that can be not 100% confirmed, but there is a lot that has been.
Right. Well, from what I can say about the protests, and this is pretty much, I'm going to say fact, because this is the only reason they would be doing that, is because the local people there are in fear of the gang retaliating against them. I mean, let's not be naive about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be the only reason I can see that happen. Also, it went from one apartment building to two, and now there's newer reports that came out that confirm there's a third building.
Multiple, yeah.
Yeah. So they definitely had a problem that they tried to hide, and citizens there were ignored by their government. They took no action, which is crazy. And at what point is it okay for the government to abandon their own citizens? Because I think at that point you pretty much lost the country, especially when there's the idea of them accepting and cheering on another criminal organization to come save them, with the rumors of the Hells Angels supposedly going down there. I know that's a rumor. They're not going down there to do that.
Yeah.
But still, people were happy about that. And so if they're in that place, in that mindset, then that speaks volumes about what's really going on there, and that the government of Colorado, Aurora, Colorado, and the governor need to be held accountable for it. And I think that that's a situation that a lot of people in America live in at this point, especially with the open border policy. I know that's a whole nother show probably and a longer conversation, but still, when people get to that point, then yes, there is a problem. It's not even a matter of pointing fingers. It's like, who cares if you're Republican, Independent, or Democratic? Just fix the situation for everybody.
Well, just imagine if the Hells Angels had really gone there.
Right.
Could you imagine the absolute bloodbath that would have taken place?
Yeah.
These
would not have been good.
Heavily armed Venezuelan gang members in a 17-story building with potential hundreds of hostages.
Yes.
with surrounded by a motorcycle gang, presumably heavily armed, because they know the Venezuelans are heavily armed. I mean, this could have been an absolute massacre, while everyone stood by and, like you said, allowed it to happen. I mean, there had to have been someone who called 911 2 months ago. The first time someone showed up in the hallway of my apartment building, and I'm like looking through my peephole, I'm like, oh, There are dudes with guns. I'm
Yeah,
gonna make a phone call. There
absolutely.
could not have been one.
Well, there was 911 calls made, and one lady, I forgot her name, but she did report, and this was confirmed by CBS. They sent some reporters out there to try to see, hey, is this really happening? They wrote a whole article on it, and she was told by the police that, well, to respond to that, we would need 3 to 4 people together to do that, and we're not going to do that because it would pull resources away from, the other parts of the city.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a priority to them. And I'm not trying to beat them up. I'm just saying, instead of trying to look good politically, just admit, hey, there's an issue and help out your citizens. There's innocent people. They're just trying to live, which is crazy.
It's the same, on a quasi different level, but with all the street takeovers in California, there are citizens who are constantly put into danger, and it's a problem. But it's a resource issue. You can't send one police officer over there.
No, you can't.
They try that, and the cop goes into the middle of it, and they mob his car, and they smash out the window. And now this cop has to desperately, carefully get away without running anyone over while he stays alive. So, unless you can get 20 or 30 officers together, at this one intersection at this time, this stuff it's tough to police on a one-off.
It is, and that what you just said is almost a daily occurrence in Oakland.
Oh yeah, Oakland, San Francisco, San Diego's picking up a little bit, but Los Angeles, I mean, it's especially South
there's just
LA.
a video that just came out about one incident just happened in LA.
Oh, they are
everywhere
nightly, to say the least. And it's not just, okay, these guys are doing donuts and then they leave and everyone goes home. These guys are doing donuts and then half the spectators go in and loot the AM/PM that's at the adjacent gas station, and then one of the cars is left in the intersection and they light the damn thing on fire. So I'm a guy who, I will fully admit, I'm fairly sure I'm out of the statute of limitations from 30 years ago now, but I used to street race. I would go out to the city of Ontario and we would go to Mission and Milliken, and we would race for hours and hours on end. But here's what we didn't do. We didn't block streets. We didn't loot AM/PMs. We didn't light cars on fire. We just went out, raced, had a great time, and then went home. You want to know how many times we shot at each other? None. It was a different time. So, I'll post a video of a street takeover and someone will post a video of like greasers racing their 57 Bel Airs in the aqueduct of Los Angeles, and like, same thing, just different decade. And it's like, no, this is not the same thing. You've got drones firing fireworks at guys as they're doing donuts in these street takeovers. This is not the same thing.
It's gotten crazy, and the only reason I laugh is because of the absurdity of it all. How crazy it's gotten.
Yes. It is like movie parody now. If you were making a movie on how bad it was in Los Angeles and you produced a street takeover that happens every single night on the streets, they would be like, bro, stop. This is nonsense. You pulled this out of a Mad Max movie.
Right.
We're trying to be realistic. It's gone into parody now.
I sometimes think we are living in a movie, to be quite honest. And
well, I agree. We're somewhere. I'm like, we're in either idiocracy.
I don't know.
I don't know. But see, I think we're also like falling down. Also, Michael Douglas from like the 90s. I don't know. I don't know if we've been to falling down or if we're going to falling down.
We're in the middle somewhere, right?
I think we're about to fall down. We're tripping right now. And then I don't know how it ends. It's either going to be Planet of the Apes or Terminator. I don't know which one, but either the apes are going to rise up or the machines are going to rise up. I don't think they'll team up against us, but that's the only way it ends. We are 1000% living in a movie.
Well, let's hope Elon Musk's inventions don't become software and turn into Skynet. So
it's good. You never can tell.
You never know.
Everything seems like a good idea until it's not.
It does, right? let's move on to some. And the reason I'm going to ask you about this, and I know it's a sensitive thing, but the school shootings that just happened, and it's going to tie into, our conversation next on the election. Obviously, tying to Kamala. I think you might see where I'm going with all of this, but I do want to get your opinion on school shootings in general. I mean, nobody agrees that they're good or they should happen. I don't think anyone should agree that it's a good thing. That's crazy. But what are your thoughts on that and how? And this is why I'm asking this, because I hate that when these tragic events happen, it gets so politicized, and it's all about my side versus your side instead of just really coming together and caring about America for America, right?
Oh yeah, yes. There's 10 people that are dead. What color was the shooter?
It just kills me. It just kills me that they politicize this and use this as an opportunity to gain votes, and it's ridiculous. Yes. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, it's to your point. I mean, I don't know what could be more terrible. Yeah. Which is the point. When these just absolute cowards go out and do this, the thought process is, what could be the worst thing I could do? And I don't know where else you could go after that would have the impact as a school shooting. It's instantly politicized. You're right. And I think it's politicized because it has the sensitive subject of guns, but it's not about guns. But we can make it about guns.
True. Yes.
The day after it happened, over in Boise, the school district had active shooter drills. And it wasn't in my son's district, which I was happy about because I never really thought about it until now. My wife was telling me that the mom's group she's in, she was like, yeah, well, so-and-so, she's in kindergarten. She did really well. She just, she hugged on the teacher the whole entire time. And I'm like, why are we traumatizing these kids? Why are we putting them through this thing that, as unbelievably terrible as it is the odds of it happen are statistically insignificant.
Yes.
But we are freaking these kids out. And now not only are we freaking these kids out, we're freaking out the parents because the parents are freaked out because the kids are freaked out. And it becomes an issue not about school shooters, but the guns that are causing their kids to be freaked out. It all comes back to a gun issue. And I don't think for me, it's not an issue about guns. It's an issue of schools just being the softest, greatest target to these cowards, like I'm saying. It's an open invitation for them to express their inner garbageness, and we give them the opportunity because we can't fortify them. We can't make them safe because the way we make them safe is with guns. And we go back to, well, these are the same things that people are coming in and shooting with, so they're obviously bad. It's not about the guns. I have this crazy idea that I think can actually not only really help school shootings, but solve another problem that our country has, which is unemployed veterans. We have more than 400,000 unemployed veterans in this country. Crazy. It's absolutely wild that people who signed their name, that made a pledge, that put their hand on their heart to lay down their life for this country, they come back and we just give them the finger. Well, whatever, bro.
Yeah, I know veterans, and I've had veterans in my family, and they don't all come out the other side in a good way.
No, they don't.
Or supported.
And a lot of that is because of lack of support. It's lack of a duty that you used to have, and now you were just left. My buddy was in for 24 years, and they handed him a pamphlet. They're like, do you want to start your own business? Do you want to work for someone else? Have a great day. And
wow.
And he was not prepared for the real world. I'm by no means am I saying that the military is like prison, but it's the same thing. You can't just have someone who's been incarcerated, who's been in this system, has been in this thing that works the same exact way for 20 years and go, freedom, there you go.
That's a shock. It's a shock to an individual.
You need purpose. You need this thing. So back to the school shootings. We also have 200,000 or so schools that need protection. So we find these veterans. We obviously go through a vetting process and make sure that that they're good, and we give them purpose. We give them a school. And this isn't a person walking around in fatigues with an M16 on their shoulder. This is Colonel Sally, who served her country, and now she's here just to keep an eye on the place. She's, this is her school. And anyone who decides to do this now knows that Sally's there. There's a Sally at every school. There is a vet who pledged to lay down their life, and they will do that for this school also. I think you solve multiple problems at the same time. The schools just can't be soft targets.
No.
You know that if you come here, you are going to face instant pushback. This isn't going to be a thing where we wait for 20 minutes and we hope a resource officer shows up, or the police, and the police are more concerned with holding back parents from running inside. We're not doing that. We've got someone on the inside, and normally these people are going to their school. So they know this person is here. I think it does it not solve the problem of this person who wants to go shoot a place up. No, it doesn't really solve that problem, but it saves the schools. And if you walk into any bank in the country, there's a reason why stuff is behind bars and it's safe. And odds are there's a security guard there. It's because we know that we want to protect our money, because people want to come and take it. So we fortify that place. We should do the same to schools. I'm not saying make it look like a prison. I'm just saying let the bad guys know this isn't going to be as easy as you want it to be.
Well, I mean, you make a point, because you have guards at retail stores, right?
Everywhere.
Okay, so, and I don't know how it is in Idaho, and I don't know if they were doing this when you left California, but now schools, at least I'm in the Central Valley, so out here I can see it, and I think it's all of California. They're all fenced off now. They're all fenced off, locked up. You can't just walk in. You can't.
That's even here. They have closed campuses everywhere, where if once school is going, you have to, in theory, go through the office. I mean, these are 5-foot chain link fences. If someone wants to get over them, someone is going to get over them. But I mean, no one messes around anymore. Even out here where you'd think the odds of something like that happening, like I said, are incredibly, unbelievably small.
Right.
But you have to take just basic precautions. Why wouldn't you? We haven't gotten to the point where you walk out of the Albertsons and there's a security guard there, but there is a reason why the Brinks truck is driving around town and it's got dudes with guns on their hips, because they want to make sure that the money stays in the truck. That's go back to the old West, go back to the earliest days of man. We've been protecting the important stuff. We should probably continue doing that.
Schools should absolutely be protected. I mean, they should have a police officer at every single school, and I know they have them out here, and they're all armed. They're sworn-in police officers. Mm-hmm. So they're on site. They park their vehicles very prominently, so there's someone there. But how someone could just sneak a gun in is crazy. I mean, someone's not paying attention from the get-go.
Sure.
And these things don't just happen, okay? There's usually signs that this is coming. And I think another issue we have with what's going on is our children are being ignored. They're not being paid attention to enough. Most children will reach out for help in their way, and if we're not looking for that, which I believe is the job of most educators, then you're probably just adding to a bad situation. I mean, you should be able to recognize when someone needs help and help that individual, and it shouldn't get to the point it does where they think that grabbing a gun and killing people is the right solution for their lives. So,
well, I believe the FBI paid a visit to this guy's house.
Absolutely.
In 2023, last year. So, not only is it the kids don't have they aren't being listened to, even when somebody calls the literal Federal Bureau of Investigation, send them to the house, they stop paying attention. Somehow the FBI comes there, the dad still thinks it's a good idea to go buy his son a rifle, and the dad's facing for attempted or not
Yes.
attempted murder or second
Which
degree murder, whatever it is.
second degree murder, which
Cool.
I can agree with, because
Hell yeah.
why would you arm your kid with a weapon when you know they have issues? In fact, in 23, as you said, the FBI caught on to this individual through rumors and whatever was going on, and they looked into this person. They already knew. They already knew that there was going to be an issue.
Yeah.
It was already reported. So, I mean, maybe we, like you said earlier, we put our tinfoil hat on and go, what's really going on? But yeah, I think we need to pay attention to the kids more, definitely. I'm not sure how you feel about more gun control. In the end, you could take guns away. It's not going to stop criminals from being criminals. It's not going to stop someone from buying something on the black market. There's always a way to get it. If you're determined, you're going to make it happen.
Yeah, without question. Any gun control is just taking guns away from law-abiding citizens. I don't think that benefits the law-abiding citizens at all. Criminals are going to criminal, and it's and whenever I say things like that, you're like, well, no speed limit then. Just let everyone do what they want.
Well,
why is murder illegal? And it's like, all right.
Quite.
Why do we have to have this disingenuous leaping off point? There are bad people who are going to do bad things, and I would love it if I were in a bank or if I were in a school and some criminal came in with a gun. I would love it more than anything to have a good guy with a gun right next to me. And I think you can talk to David Hogg and he won't say that on X, but if he's in the bank and someone's all, hey, hold on, I got your back, he's going to be pretty happy about that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's more gun control is exactly that. It's just it's not going to help out the people who need it. So
no, you're right. And I guess I agree. I wonder if you do, but maybe these parents that willingly provide these weapons should be held accountable.
Yes.
Especially if you see signs that your child should not be having any access to a weapon.
Sure. I was shooting with my family when I was 5, 6 years old. My 22 rifle that I still have, I've been shooting that thing for over 40 years. And I was taught gun safety.
Yeah.
I mean, there are basic rules to this thing that you impart to kids, and kids are incredibly safe. I see videos online where where very young kids are firing weapons and people are freaked out about it. I'm like, no, that kid's not going to be the school shooter. That's you don't necessarily have to worry about these kids who understand gun safety, and their parents are listening and working with them. And I
agree. And there's high schools that have school shooting teams that go compete.
Yes. Yes. I think those are the kids you it's a self-selecting group. You don't have to worry about.
And this was a sensitive topic, obviously, and it's hard to give a straightforward solution because everyone's going to have a different view on it depending on their experience. But it's a conversation to have. And it's definitely worth bouncing ideas back and forth. I mean, I'll be straight up. I'm not against guns. I don't believe in abolishing our Second Amendment right whatsoever. No. But, it is tragic when these things happen. And it does make you question, like, well, what can we do to help alleviate this situation? What do we do to stop that? And it's hard because I don't know what the solution is. And nobody ever wants to really, come up with one that actually makes sense outside of, hey, take guns away from everybody. So,
yeah,
and that's not where we need to be either.
Yeah, even if hypothetically, you could snap your finger and remove all of the guns at once, then we instantly have a knife problem.
Well,
because then you've got a switchblade. This guy's got a samurai sword, and
right.
I mean it's
okay. Sorry to cut you off, but I literally did an episode on this gun issue. Okay, and we take the UK, we take Australia, for example, where there's no guns, and I've already had people come at me, but the stats are stats. regardless of taking guns away, their murder rate, homicide rate in Australia, the UK, and in America, now the numbers of people are different because we have 330 million people versus, let's say, less than 100 million or 65 million.
But per capita.
But 1%, all three countries.
Wow.
Under 1%. Mass shootings in the USA, and you can get this information from Brady.org, who is an anti-gun violence organization. Mass shootings account for less than 1% of gun deaths. 60% of gun deaths are actual suicides. So I'm not giving people that data to downplay, school shootings. I mean, that's bad regardless.
Sure.
But if we're going to make decisions, we got to have all the data in front of us and be realistic about it.
Oh, I think it's really important. I mean, whenever we talk about mass shootings, the only guns, they're like assault rifles, and mass shootings. It's like, okay, hold on a second, because school shootings are, you want to talk about another tiny percentile. School shootings are 1 or 2% of mass shootings. The vast, overwhelming majority of mass shootings happen on the streets of Chicago and Washington, D.C. and Oakland every single night with illegally obtained handguns that have nothing to do with any sort of stupid made up term assault rifle that doesn't even mean anything anyway. It's no one wants to talk about the real mass shootings that are happening nightly. They only want to glom on to the school shootings because it serves a much greater purpose for this narrative, going back to, it's not about the school shootings, it's about the guns.
I'm agreeing with you. It's just unfortunate kids do have to go through this, that it does come up. And when it does, of course you're going to be scared,
Yeah.
I don't think we had to go through that when we were going through school. I don't recall it happening. It might have been like a distant event that we learned about, but it wasn't, we didn't have shooting drills,
But I'd also let's look at some numbers though. I'd love to see the number. I'd love to. That's not the way I meant that. It would be interesting to look at. I know it just sounds bad. I'd love to see the number of kids. It would be really interesting to look at the number of kids that die in school shootings each year versus the number of kids that drown in a pool, versus the number of kids that overdose, versus the number of kids that fall off a ladder and suffer a brain injury. I'm willing to bet these common accidents that happen on a daily basis happen in a much, much greater magnitude than these school shootings that we're now freaking out the kids about at school, instead of going, hey, when you're around a pool, or saying, freaking
or even car
out.
accidents.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, are we trying to save lives, or are we trying to freak kids out? Because we're not saving lives, but we are freaking kids out.
Right.
So, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? I'm kind of running through my math, and it doesn't seem like it's the thing you're saying.
Right.
So, of course it's terrible.
Yeah.
Anytime a kid loses their life, it's terrible. There are several other ways that it happens on a much greater level that we spend zero time talking about. The amount of kids, let's talk obesity alone. The amount of kids whose BMI is in the 70s now, who this will impact and follow them for the rest of their lives. We're not going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about the school shootings, because it hits that emotional button.
Yeah,
it
does.
There's no other place. There's, like I said earlier, there's really no other spot that they can go after that's going to elicit this sort of emotional response.
Right.
So that's the reason.
That's exactly what it is. And, most people don't want to remove themselves from the emotional side of it and just look at the data to make decisions. But again, it's a bad situation. We know it.
Yeah.
But, again, these conversations have to be had, but based on actual data and what's going on. And, just knee-jerk reactions to enforce policies that will, affect the entire nation in a real bad way, because it's never been proven that if you take the guns away from the citizens, that the government doesn't keep trying to encroach on their rights. I mean, no matter where you go, it's happened. It's even happened in the UK within the last few years. Australia, it happened during COVID. Canada is another example. And then, of course, we have every country that turned communist. But, that's a whole nother conversation there. Let's just go into the presidential election because I think, I want to get you out of here. I know you have places to go here. What do you think about this year's election?
Man, it's been unreal. Talk about living in a movie. I mean, we've had a sitting president drop out of the race. Unheard of. We've had a presidential candidate shot at, an assassination attempt. Unheard of. The VP is now taking the spot and is completely dodging any sort of interviews and is so protected. You thought that Biden was protected before. Harris is infinitely more protected, and she has just got the machine going full blast Kamala Palooza. I don't know what's going to happen. Like we said earlier, with the debate coming up, I'm still not 100% Harris will still be the candidate, and it's like, well, that would be insane and unprecedented. What hasn't been insane or unprecedented over the past 2 months? So there is what do you call it? They've done this before. There is proof of concept that they can dump their candidate pretty easily and within 7 minutes fire up the campaign wagon for someone else.
Yeah, they definitely ran the stress test.
Yes. So Kamala Harris is definitely under the gun because they'll just drop her. They had Biden for 40 some years. They've been supporting him and they dropped him like nothing.
True.
So Harris, they will have no problem doing it again because it's all about Orange Man bad. I mean, it's that's
crazy
what it all comes
because
down to them.
As we said earlier, we have a candidate that never went through a primary, was nominated. Not by any of the Democratic voters themselves. And beyond that, I read something like Trump already did let's say 37, 38 interviews. All right. And then Kamala Harris just did one so far. And even that one she couldn't do on her own. She had to have Walsh there on her side to bail her out. And it was a softball interview.
Yeah. Pre-taped softball interview. The interviews that Trump's had, it really kicked off for me with the Elon Musk. And when Musk called it a conversation, I was like, oh, that's good. And it was an important distinction because one, that's exactly what it was. And two, I thought it was so humanizing for Trump. It was the least Trumpy Trump had ever been. And it showed him like a human being.
Agreed.
He was talking, and that's what more people need to see. And it's hard to, I mean, the never Trumpers, the people who are out of their brain, nothing you can do about them. But the people who are thinking about getting on board the Trump train for the first time, this is important to see him as someone who's not just this caricature, because he is Donald Trump is a caricature of Donald Trump. That's who he is. He's this big bombastic guy, which is huge and helps him with a large percentage of the people. But there's also 10-15% that turns off. I think he can win them over because Harris is so bad, but it's those humanizing times. It's those times where he goes, okay, I can identify with that guy, believe it or not.
I think our problem, especially in this election, I mean, how can you, it's not enough to have 15 minutes to get your points across to the American public. You just can't. 15-minute interviews, even 30-minute interviews, sometimes are just not enough. And I like what Elon Musk did because it was the first time you had a long-form conversation with an actual presidential candidate. And I think that's what's needed because the longer you talk, the more someone relaxes and the more you're able to pull out their personality and what they really think about things.
Yeah.
And I was in on that space. I got a seat on that, which was great because it was hard. There was a ton of people trying to get in.
Yeah.
So I was lucky. I heard you were there too, right? So But what was crazy is listening to the entire conversation, and then right after that, people posting a bunch of nonsensical bullshit and out of context stuff about what was said, and I'm like, I literally just listened to the whole conversation. That's not what happened.
No.
And it's just another example of the big machine, right? Just being the machine, working the way it does to try to, manipulate and steer people in the direction that they want them to go to win those votes. And it's unfortunate. And I think we need Kamala Harris to have a long-form conversation. It doesn't have to be Elon Musk, because she probably wouldn't do it, but someone needs to have her open up and get to know who she really is.
With anyone, do it with Don Lemon.
Sure.
Don Lemon
Sure.
is terrible, but over a 2.5-hour period, you're going to run out of softball questions about
Absolutely.
her socks or, or
Socks.
anything else, So maybe that was a Biden thing, but
That's okay. It's
Harrison,
still funny.
she inherited it all.
Right.
So, it would be great. It's exposing, and it's not, I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. It
No,
could
no,
be
no, no.
exposing in a
not.
good way. And I think for Trump, it absolutely was.
We need to know who we're dealing with. We really do.
Yes. But, it's that 10 or 15% I talk about that are on the fence with Trump. I speak about them because I was that guy. I was on the fence. I've talked about this. I never voted for Trump. In 2016, I voted for Libertarian. In 2020, I didn't vote for president. I thought that he was the better candidate, but I couldn't vote for Trump because he was too Trump for me.
I get it. I do. I understand.
But now, there's no choice. This is, I've always hated when people say this, because like, this is the most important election of our lifetime. This is actually the most important election of our lifetime for a lot of different reasons.
It really feels that way this time, though, right?
It really does. So, but then when I see things like Trump made a post on Truth Social about the AI crowd at Kamala Harris's at the airport hangar, and that kind of stuff just does damage, where it's like, look, that's not the case. And all of a sudden I'm getting called a DNC shill because I'm going against what Trump said. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is an important election that I want to win. And if you're jumping on the wrong side of conspiracy theories, it's going to turn off that 10 or 15%. I made a post a week or so ago where I was re-registering to vote in the state, and instead of independent or no party preference, I selected Republican. First time I've in years. I posted and it's like, oh, what finally, I can't remember exactly what the saying was, but someone just left a shitty comment, and I'm thinking this is exactly what's keeping people away.
Right.
If I were on the fence and I'd be like, hey man, I understand it's important. I'm voting for Trump this time around. And half of MAGA is like, oh, well, where have you been for 8 years, you dick? And I'm like,
well,
oh, hey, why are we doing this?
Yeah,
If
that's not the right response.
Anyone coming to the party should be embraced.
Agreed.
I don't care if you're Amber Rose. I don't care who you are. You're coming to the party, and you can either bring friends with you, or you can tell your friends that I showed up to a MAGA party for the first time and they told me to go kick rocks.
Right.
This is an important time where we need to be embracing everyone coming to the party. And I'm not saying Trump shouldn't be Trump, but let's not embrace all of the poison, that the left does. Kyle Rittenhouse had a different opinion for 30 seconds, and then the whole entire right side of the country turned on him. It's don't be everything that we claim to hate. It will only serve to turn off the people who are thinking about voting for Trump.
I think Trump, he can't get out of his own way. He can't help himself.
I get it.
And that's what people hated about him was, remember, mean tweets, all that. He puts his foot in his mouth a lot. He does. But I think principally he does care about the country and wants it to be, as he says, make America great again. I don't know how that phrase ever became a negative, but whatever. And just to your point, I mean, I was a Democrat before I was a Republican for years. until one day the Democratic Party was no longer the Democratic Party. One day I just looked around, I was like, I'm not sure what's happening anymore. And what's interesting about this election is you have, like RFK Jr. coming over and siding with Trump, still trying to figure out what's going there because he's not fully pulled out, but just in swing states, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he feels betrayed by his own party, which is the only reason he would do this. Same thing happened with Tulsi Gabbard when she was running for president against Kamala Harris. She saw what they really were and decided, hey, I'm out as well.
Yeah.
So I can agree. I think, yes, based on all the signs and the stars out there in the sky and how everything's aligning, that this really could be the election of our time this year. It really does seem that way. And if you look at, the subversive comments and messaging from Kamala and Waltz, which are literally very borderline Marxist, communist, to be quite honest. I mean, I'm not sure what an opportunity economy is. She's yet to explain that. Her stance on, gun policy. Mm-hmm. And she just there's just a video that came out where she was literally stating, if you're not policing your social media platforms, then we're coming after you. I'm sorry. That sounds like a pathway to maybe communism, maybe not, but definitely not what we are now.
Yeah, it's I hope just because of the rate that and all the stuff coming at this election, this one has to be the most important one ever because I can't do this again.
Yeah.
In 2 years, it can't be more important than this one. In 4 years, it can't be more important than this one. I am hoping that people see through the veneer that is Kamala Harris and the whole entire campaign. JD Vance says I'm going to misquote it, but he says it's he hates it that school shootings are happen in America. I can't remember what the quote was, but they totally just butchered his quote and pulled out.
I believe I think he said it's unfortunate that this has become a way of life.
Yes, I hate that this has become a way of life.
It's unfortunate. I hate. Yeah.
And
they
just
immediately
took
said, the first part of that sentence off and started. Yeah.
which isn't bad journalism. It's not being disingenuous. It's just a straight out lie. There's nothing more to it than that, to the point that the AP took down their post. They were like, oh, we're about to get community noted to death here and look like jerks.
Yeah,
so
that post didn't last too long.
No, but it did with everyone else. Gavin Newsom's got it. All of Kamala Harris wins and her campaign, and they've got it up. And the even scarier beyond that is they post the video.
True.
They post the whole video,
and when you watch it,
of JD Vance,
they didn't even cut it out.
They didn't even cut it out. Context. They don't, because they don't need to. That's what's scary. They just need to say what he said, and their followers will believe it. They will run with it. It doesn't matter. They're not, even if they watch the video, which they probably don't. It's in their head that this is a way of life, and you run with it.
Well, it's as it's
crazy.
Been, as they say. I may get this wrong, but I thought it was the Nazi party. I'm not saying the Democrats are the Nazis, by the way, but this saying does ring true now. If you tell a lie enough, it becomes a truth.
Sure. Yep.
If you say it over and over and over, then it does become the truth because people just learn to accept it. It just sounds normal.
And like the great George Costanza says, it's not a lie if you believe it. So it's, they believe the lie, tell it over and over, and then people believe it. So it's that the George Costanza Nazi connection.
Well,
everyone's always talking about.
I hope, like you said, we don't have to go through this again. And honestly, I want younger candidates. We need fresh blood. We need people who actually have a pulse on what's going on. I think maybe Trump is the better option. Personally, I would like to have seen another Republican candidate, but I'm not going to fight what he stands for. And listen, if he was not a good pick for the country, then why did they try to assassinate him? I'm not saying who they are, but
there's clearly a lot of people wildly concerned, and even the polls and the numbers. I'm really excited for November.
If he's going to reveal who killed JFK and reveal the Epstein list, which I don't know if he really will, but he's saying it.
Yeah, I dumped the Epstein files. There was also another announcement. Oh, it was like the Office of Government Accountability and Spending.
Yeah,
Something
that's
something to
big.
that effect. Put Elon in charge of government efficiency, and I'm all for it. I will happily spend my taxes on teaching 4 million bureaucrats how to code or how to knit or some other business venture that they can make money off of, but it's not going to be sucking off the teat of taxpayers anymore.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
It's interesting. I hope people educate themselves before they actually vote. Stop voting with your feelings and actually vote with, the truth and the data that's out there to support, the right way forward in America.
Yep.
It's just my 2 cents on that. I think we got to get you out of here, Kevin.
I got a son to go pick up.
Yeah, we're at that time. So, hey, listen, thank you. This was a great conversation. I hope you had a good time yourself. And
Absolutely.
Stay in touch. Maybe we can do this again.
Yeah, without question. Thanks so much for having me on.
Awesome. All right, Kevin, thank you. Let's go.
You got it. We'll see you next time.